Hey everyone, I'm going to talk about a couple books here from Magnetic Press today. Magnetic Press is one of my favorite publishers. They're a relatively small publisher, and that's their logo right there. And they specialize in bringing over books from Europe, just finding some really outstanding comics with great art and really interesting stories, and then translating them to English and publishing them in North America in these really nice hardcover editions. And they're really distinctive. You can really recognize them when you see them on the bookshelf because they got these rounded edges, and it's just like a nice little touch. And their books are really well made, and they're often about this size or so. And yeah, just one of my favorite publishers. They do really good work. So the series I'm going to talk about here is called Warship Jolly Roger, and it's written by Sylvain Runberg and illustrated by Miquel Montlló. And this is a science fiction story. It takes place far off in the future where humanity has colonized the galaxy. They've colonized a whole bunch of planets across the galaxy, and they're all ruled by this one government known as the Confederation. And at the top of that government is the president, who has to get elected once every few years, and that's sort of the situation that they're in right now. And that's kind of the background for this story. The main character here is a man named John Tiberius Monroe. He used to be a captain in the space fleet of this confederation, but he's been in prison for the last few years for some war crimes that he committed as a fleet captain. And so we start off with like this prison escape, which was just these pages here that I just flipped past here. And he's escaping with a bunch of other prisoners, and the only ones that manage to make it are three others. A few of them, they get killed by the guards during the escape. And the only ones who manage to get out with him are these three people here. That's Elisa, who's like this really brilliant mechanic, and there's Kowalski, who's in jail because he was smuggling stuff, and there's this really enigmatic boy who has suffered something traumatic, so he doesn't talk anymore. He's effectively mute. And they've stolen a guard ship together and escaped this penal colony. And the president really wants Monroe back behind bars, and failing that, he wants him dead, because there's some history there between Monroe and the president, and it's actually part of the reason why Monroe is in prison. Now, Monroe, he has his plan where he's convinced the group that they should go and steal this warship. It's like either the flagship of the fleet or one of the most powerful fleet ships in the fleet. And he's got the authorization code, so he can override the systems and take control of the ship. And he's convinced them that, this is a very valuable ship. If we capture it, we can sell it for a ton of money and then go our separate ways, and we can live our lives in like absolute comfort and rich and wealth. So unbeknownst to them, he's got a bit of an ulterior motive, because like I said, he's got that shady history with the president, and he really wants some revenge. He wants some justice for himself, for some for basically ending up in prison. And so that sets things off. That sets the story off. And of course, as you get with science fiction stories that take place in space, there's a lot of gallivanting around the galaxy, and visiting a whole bunch of different planets. Eventually, I don't think it's really a spoiler, eventually they do get the ship, and they rename it the Warship Jolly Roger, and they kind of become space pirates. So it's really cool. It's a really cool series. The artwork is amazing. It's the artwork is all done by Montlló. He draws and he colors, and he's designed everything in here. This whole story, well, maybe not the story, but the concept of this graphic novel is his baby. Like, this was all his idea, and he didn't really want to write it. He wanted to focus on the visuals. He needed someone to script it for him. plot it all out, and he was approached by Dargaud, which is a publishing house in Belgium, and one of the really big ones over in Europe. They do a lot of really amazing comics. And some of their stuff has actually been translated and available here through Cinebooks. So I would check out some of their books too. Really, really great stuff. But Dargaud brings in Sylvain Runberg, who's a very prolific writer of graphic novels in Europe and has a lot of titles to his name. And together with Montlló, they kind of fleshed this story out, plotted out, and they made this wonderful series here in 2 volumes that Magnetic Press has published. And that it's the complete story, the 2 volumes. Oh, so over here they actually visit this planet that is like has some rebels staying on it. So, you know, given like in any kind of science fiction setting where you've got like this almost empire, human empire, there's always going to be rebels, right? There's always got to be a rebel faction, and they end up on this planet that has like these alien creatures that are kind of like remind me of the ones from Avatar. It's pretty neat, and they're telepathic too, and there's just a lot of really neat stuff that happens here. And yeah, so where was I? Montlló. Montlló is actually a concept artist. He works in animation, works in video games, film. He's a concept artist and illustrator, and so you can really see like the talent, the skill here. And he was able to focus entirely on the visuals, while Runberg focused on the storytelling. So like in the back of this volume, volume 1, we've got a lot of concept art here that Montlló produced while working on this series, and like you could just it's just beautiful. It's beautiful stuff. And one thing that really stood out for me is just the environments. They're always visiting a lot of different planets in this series, and each planet has its own palette, its own kind of shape, design, and language, and it's just, and well, this is even the planet, this is like aboard the ship, and it's really cool. Like Montlló's really taking the full force of his skill as someone who works in animation and video games and film, and he's brought it to bear on this graphic novel series. And this was like a passion project for him because you know, it's not his day job. So I'm gonna take a look at volume 2 here. So yeah, this it really comes through, that passion. Oh man, that's a really cool drawing. The passion for the art and the story really comes through Montlló's artwork. And this is the kind of stuff where even if I had found these books in a bookstore and they weren't even in English, like they were still in French or Spanish or whatever, I'd still buy this. I would still buy this just to admire the artwork because it's that good, honestly. And don't let the kind of 2D animated, kind of cartoony look of the drawings fool you. This series, this story gets pretty dark. It can get pretty grim. So it's definitely a mature reader's story. The other thing I really like is how the backgrounds, the environments, they're very distinct from the line work that's being used on the characters. So the characters are really, really beautifully drawn. They're very expressive. The line work is just amazing. But the backgrounds and the environments, there's no line work there. It's all like shape and color design. So it really creates that animated movie feel, sort of like when you watch a Studio Ghibli film. You know, the characters, you see the outlines of the drawings in their when they're being animated and stuff, but the backgrounds are often painted, very painterly, and that's what you get here. And the colors are just, that's the thing that I keep coming back to, is just the color choices, how everything is just kind of lit with the color on these pages. It's really fun. And like I said, every locale that the action takes place in has its own palette, and it really adds to just the excitement of the series, of the book. Here they're on a water planet, so it's just covered in water. Where's that opening shot? Here we go. Beautiful, beautiful opening shot. This water planet. There's a couple of scientists here, and they're doing their science thing. It's a research lab. Montlló knows about them because he had to work with them on some classified stuff back when he was a captain in the fleet, and he needs their help. He needs something from them. So they go to this water planet, and chaos ensues as it does. There's some battles with these robots that guard the researchers, and then there's like the indigenous life forms to this planet, like these squid whales that live in the water, and they start attacking the platform that the research station is built on, and it's just awesome. It's so good. And as we go along, you also learn more about the characters, the crew that has kind of come together under Montlló. All of them have kind of a shady past because, you know why? They're in jail for a reason. They're in prison for stuff that they did. And so they're not all nice characters. They're all very deeply flawed, Montlló especially. And there's just kind of a little bit of everything here in the story. You've got betrayal and politics, conspiracy. There's a story of revenge. There's a lot of space action. Honestly, for I think this whole story is contained in the 2 volumes, and each volume is about 100 pages, so it's like 200 pages altogether for the story. It moves fast. It moves really quick, but it doesn't feel rushed, at least not to me when I was reading this. I think it's just because it's been executed so well, and there's a lot that happens page to page. Like, you can just see how packed each page is between the art and the dialogue, so things move very fast. A lot of plot unfolds in a mere 200 pages here. There's some time jumps. There's a lot that happens, but I think it's paced rather well, actually. And of course, there's the president, who's the main antagonist to this story here. That's that guy. And so he's scheming to try to get reelected, but at the same time, he needs to get Montlló under control or have him assassinated. So, yeah, really great story. The thing that really stands out for me, though, as you can tell from how I've been raving about it, is just the artwork. It's incredible to look at. So it's the Warship Jolly Roger, published by Magnetic Press, written by Sylvain Runberg, illustrated by Miquel Montlló. We got some more concept art in the back of this volume. Really cool experimentation that he's doing here, like studies to figure out how he's going to render the environments, just playing with the light and the color. It's really good. And then the shape design that he's got going on to try and figure out how he's going to depict all of these different settings that the action takes place in. It's really, really good. I highly recommend this book. It should still be in print. I've seen it on the Magnetic Press website. And one more thing I guess I should talk about is these are pretty big books. They are basically the same height as an omnibus and wider too, because comics in Europe tend to have a different format, a different dimension than what we have in North America. They tend to be taller and wider, so they really do a good job of trying to maintain and respect that format. So yeah, great books by Magnetic Press. Warship Jolly Roger, definitely check it out. If you have read this, let me know in the comments, and let me know in the comments what you think about this video. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you get a chance to read this, and have a great day, read some great books, and talk to you next time.